Hoosier. Kevin Doherty and Nishikas, Pokagan Bode Wadman Dow, Nakanak and Dodem, Sandbao Danik and Dojbia, Omanjan Bissenda. My name's Kevin Doherty. I'm Pokagan Band Potawatomi. Was originally born here in South Bend, so technically I'm a Hoosier. I don't often admit that in public. I currently, five days old, I moved up into Michigan, and I live up in Michigan. Before we get started here too far, I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge one of our mentors here, Stuart King. Potawatomi folks know Stuart. He's been quite a teacher and a mentor to everyone, and he's not in a good way right now. And I'd just like to acknowledge that. I'll move on a little bit here. I'm wearing my Hartford Indians sweatshirt here. I teach up at Hartford High School. That's about 30 miles, 40 miles north of here. If you were here for Marcus Winchester's talk yesterday, you heard him mention Hartford is one of the three biggest community areas for Pokagan Band Potawatomi. We're about 10% of the population in Hartford. It's just a little town. It's not. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it places. But there's a lot of our community people there. The state of Michigan, largely through the efforts of the Hannahville Potawatomi community in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, along with assistance from Saginaw, Chippewa, and Mount Pleasant, Michigan. They were the main pushers for getting an amendment in state law that tribes could authorize certify language teachers. You didn't have to be formally certified as a teacher, but you could be certified as a language teacher. So that's the mechanism that I'm teaching it. We approached the school a couple of years ago, about this time of year, and just approached them with the thought, could we, we could be open to that. And we're expecting a year or two to work through it, and they said, okay, we'll set it up. We'll start in the fall. And teaching high school was never something I expected to do. I had, in my own language growth a few years ago, I realized that, I'm at that stage where I need to, for my own growth, I should take on that role of a teacher. I'm not first language. I'm only just beginning to get to baby talk at this point. But I felt there are things I can offer. That you can't expect. I don't expect a first language teacher to sit there for hours and do cat dog 1, 2, 3 for hours and hours with kids. But I figured, I can offer that much. So I had begun teaching classes, evening classes, adult classes at the tribe, and then I got brought into the community college, Southwest Michigan College in Dowagiac, to begin teaching classes there. So this thing kind of exploded on me, and I think back to when I was in school. My parents were very involved with the tribal politics. My grandmother is the still the only female tribal chairman that Pokagon Bend has had. My grandfather began as tribal secretary at the age of 18 in 1899. So I have this involvement with it. And so when I first went to school, when I was a kid, my first day in kindergarten, and start, the first bit of history that they give you. And to me it was, this is all a lot. And from that point on, it was, the public school system at that point had zero credibility with me. And I truly hated every day of school for the next 13 years. And so for me to go into the public school system, it was, I was surprised my first day of lugging my briefcase up there and just walking up to that school. It wasn't comfortable going in there. And it took me a while to kind of get over that, but I'm realizing that I really enjoy the adult classes probably more, just on an enjoyment level. I'm working with people mostly people my own age, and you get back and forth, and you get different questions and such. In the college settings, similar, more studious setting. But I'm just, the high school, day in, day out, that just fascinates me. And the time commitment is one thing, but just the amount of energy that I have to focus in to try, how do I reach these kids? How do I give these kids something? And I realize, despite my best efforts, they are retaining things, I've had some kids for 2 years now, and I don't think that they have something, you get kind of tired, dealing with teenagers sometimes, and they just pop out with something, it's like, oh, you had that all along, and I'm astounded by that. And it goes back to I'm not formally trained as a linguist, as a teacher. I've gone to plenty of classes, so I have a sense of things that work and don't work. And I apply those. I've heard enough times, you need that 2,000 to 4,000 hours of exposure. And I've come to really believe that my lessons really aren't that important. Just don't turn them off too much so that they continue to listen to you. And it's that 2,000 to 4,000 hours that will make a difference. And it's pretty fascinating that way. I'd like to I want to acknowledge Martha. She's I just watched her and her kids grow, and watch their commitment to it, and watch their commitment to the language, and just you see that commitment that lasts. You have so many people that drop out of classes after 2-3 months, and Martha's still here, her kids are still here, and I just really appreciate that, and the smile. It's just nice to see, it feels like we're making progress. And I also want to acknowledge Frank. Although Frank is younger than I am, I think of him as my language elder. I've learned an enormous amount of things from Frank's classes, and I just find myself, I'll go along and I'll encounter something or try something out. That's why Frank said that 5 years ago. I just want to acknowledge that. Igwin. The other big takeaway I have from this, I don't tell my students this very often because I don't want to scare them away, but it really is a hard language. It's really difficult. How do you do that? How do you teach it? And I haven't found anyone who's cracked that code yet. We have very few fluent speakers left. The opportunity for immersion is probably gone. We sent Pokagon Band sent a couple people up to work with Jim Thunder, Mary Jane Thunder, Billy Daniels up in Forest County, Potawatomi, because we don't have any. We've lost our first language speakers here in Pokagon Band community. Those are probably the last two people that get to do that until another couple generations. So how do you teach it to people like us, so that we can pass it on to younger ones, and then, so we can give the whole picture to the younger ones beyond cat, dog, 1, 2, 3. One of the few semi-linguistic things I did read, my niece passed on the book Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner, a layman talking about language acquisition. And he relayed the fact that studies have been shown, and he references English, and it says it applies to most languages, and he believes every language, that there are stages in language acquisition. And with English, I believe it's, you will learn running before you learn run, and you'll learn running before you learn runs, and you'll learn all those before you learn did run. And he said, not only does this apply to kids as they acquire it as first language learners, studies have shown that second language students go through those exact same stages. So I'm expecting that when no one's done that research for Potawatomi, I'm expecting that there's exact same stages, and you won't jump stages. You have to acquire step 1, then you'll acquire step 2, then so on. So I'm guessing that staircase is out there for Potawatomi. And again, I go back to Frank several years ago. He may not even remember saying this, but when
I say a lot.
one thing he mentioned was he suggested teaching from the command form. Do it. Do this. Do that. Do it. And in Potawatomi, that's a specific form, and then there are other forms that you conjugate from there. And working with my teenagers, I think that's it. I really do think that's stage 1, and then we have to build up from there. What the next ones are, I don't know. But they respond, those teenagers respond when I can throw things at them. And both literally and figuratively. But they will, they'll react to the language when you just literally, jump, get up, go over there, do that, and they'll, and the more you can engage them that way, the more meaningful it is. And those are the things that they retain. So, my second year students now, those are the things that they have. Along with cat, dog, 1, 2, 3, those are the verbs, the commands that they have. So that's in the back of my head. I guess that's the biggest thing that's in my head on how I eat the elephant. one bite at a time. Right? That's the next bite for me. So, you.
Oh. Me? Oh. Who's you? Frank Barker, Dishnakas. Frankie and Dishnakako. Navish Washington. Bradley Indian Settlement, Doshia. That was the Powani. Dow. Carol Bush. Yeah. Accident. Bradley. Knowles. Charles Barker. Olive Hill, Kentucky. My dad, he's from Kentucky. My mom's from Michigan. Should be right there. About 80 miles, maybe 88 north of here. That's where I'm from. My little band, my little settlement there around Gun Lake. And my dad was working on a railroad when he met my mom. And so growing up, I was back and forth. So, a lot of times it's like I'm really jealous about people that, have gotten to be more around here, because when I was in Kentucky, everything just stopped. And spent a lot of time by myself. And contrary to what my wife would say, I don't get lost in my thoughts, I just kind of wander around. So, and I enjoy that. And if I think about probably my biggest reason why I enjoy the language, enjoy learning the language, is there's just so many things that peel back, and it's like, wow, that really is fun. There's a man, he died a couple years ago, and I admired him. He an Ojibwe father and a Potawatomi mother, and what he spoke was Ojibwe. He was proud to be, Potawatomi, but we'd always been a small tribe, and we always would find shelter with a larger group, and we always kind of convalesced to that. So we have a lot of people who think they're speaking Potawatomi, but it's really Ojibwe because they kind of just melted in there. Except for Ottawa. Ottawa is Ojibwe with a Potawatomi accent. We influenced that and kind of had a happy medium. But he was thinking about wandering around in your thoughts. He was talking about the stuff that keeps him awake at night. He's thinking to himself one time, G-Mon, that's a boat or canoe in particular. He goes, G-Mon. Then he goes, G-Spin. That's, people kissing. He goes, why is that? Why are they so similar? And then he says about 3 o'clock, it hit him. G-Smog, G-Spin. And it was just funny. We don't know if that was it or not, but it's just fun to think about. And like with that Lakota, with the good morning, we've been doing that too. Minowabin. And I was thinking with a friend of mine, and he goes, what's that? And I go, I know. And because Wabin by itself doesn't really exist. It's morning, but it doesn't really exist. It exists as a figment of your imagination. It's a concept of morning. When it's actually morning, it's Wabuk. So it should be, Wabuk. It's a good morning. But you can only say that when it is actually in the morning. It also means tomorrow, but besides the point. So it's like, yeah, they just want to say good morning. So they're saying, Wabuk. This is kind of funny, but how we would say that, greeting somebody is just, Nijana, which technically translates as how. So that's funny. And let's talk about, how's the world treating you? How are you walking about this morning? How did you sleep? So it just gets shortened down to Nijana, or the Ojibwe is the Ottawas, Anishna. And then they even shorten it down more to Ani. It all comes from that. But probably my favorite way of just saying hello is just, oh. And it just means, you're there. I see you. I acknowledge you. You know, that you can use that for like, you know, you're welcome. Somebody says, you know, and it's like, yep, that's me. I got you. Till next time. You know, or like you just meet each other and pass, you know, just that brother nod, you know. And just stuff like that. I just find that interesting. It's like, yeah, okay, that's cool. That's what I find rewarding. You know, when you get to the point where, you know, other people will say that too, it's like, good. And my language journey is being with my mother's family up here in Michigan, being my grandfather's shadow. And when I was growing up, there were people speaking, and they were speaking mostly when they didn't want the kids to understand what they were saying. And I was always like, well, what's that mean? What's he saying? And I just found that mystical. It was just, you know, that's what I want to do. And that's how we fall in love with something. We've got to know about it. We've got to see it. We've got to hear it. And we need to encourage our young people to speak and see it and say it and do it. And let other people hear that. And my hope and my prayer, with my little classes that I'd had here and there, I would get some young people that would just fall in love with the language, go away and learn more than I've got, and then come back and teach it. And I'm seeing that happen. And it's like, wow, you know, it's like, oh, me, watch. And it's good to see that happening. And it's really fun to have people that answer my questions. You know, people, you know, I've just really found that rewarding. And I'm glad to see that, you know, our bands now, that's actually becoming a career option. It's not just like, you know, you're out of a job when the grant expires. You know, you can stay there, you can build, you can look to a pension, you can look to health insurance. For a while, Kevin, he worked hard on getting that going with the Pokagons. But, you know, I took that, I worked there for a little bit, but man, they buried me in so much bureaucracy, I couldn't do that. And it was, so I was on the education department, and we ended up without a director. It's like, oh, he's got a college degree, he can do it. So 14 months of my work there, I did that for 13 months. And it's like, you know, I just not functioning there. So when a position came up in the local school district, you know, I took that. Because I needed to see, you know, keep my family insured, keep a steady income. So I did that. Figured I would have my summers to work on language. So I was able to do that. And it was fun where we're at. We have a mixture of, you know, white, black, Indian, Hispanics. It's like some of the Pokagons kids, they would call me, you know, a couple would call me Uncle Frank, and then it turned into Uncle Barker in the school setting. And then I have the other kids that would start calling me Uncle Barker too. It's like, yeah, go ahead, go for it. That works for me. And just the other day, I had this one kid goes, he called you Uncle Barker? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. He just turned around and walked away. So I figured he probably would be doing it too. But I'm retiring from there, and I'm going into a new position with my band. It's going to be the language coordinator. I don't know exactly what I'm coordinating yet, but we'll find out. And I figured, you know, I wanted to take my retirement and work on my fluency and keep that going. So as long as I don't get buried in the bureaucracy, I'll do that for a bit. But yeah, I would follow my grandfather around. That's what I was interested in doing, and working with the older people. Like I had the opportunity to work with you know, our last remaining speakers, you know, the Southwest Michigan dialect of and seeing how we fit in compared to the other dialects. You know, we'll just kind of keep that. And I think the more we do things, the more that that dialect was gonna show itself. And you can already kind of see that going, because like what would be a plain S sound with Wisconsin people, it becomes a sh sound with us. You know, O sound with them becomes a U sound with us. Like you would say boujou, they would say bojo. They would say stupie for blue or green. We'd say shpie for blue or green. And I think, you know, it comes in. You know, I'm just seeing how we're related. So I just kind of want to see how that goes. I enjoy questions. I enjoy talk. You know, I kind of make sure that I keep myself open to situations and try to do what I can. You know, more than happy to do that. That's about it. So now, feel. Martha.
Virginia Martha Digikas, Boliwami now, looking in at Dignagwas, Akodo Dem, Niles, Adulchia. I have 3 kids, and I help teach. Well, right now I'm on a break because of my kids' schedule, but when their breaks settles down for the summer, I'll go back to teaching kids language, and I've been doing that for about 3-4 years. Went to work at Pokagon Head Start. I helped the language coordinator. She was on maternity leave, and she asked if I would take over because when my kids were little. It was before my son came along. We just moved back, and we went to. I was like, I didn't grow up with Potawatomi, just very basic, like Sikat and Boujou, Mama P. That's all I grew up with because my family, my mom didn't know it, and it was lost because of everything that happened in our history. And so I knew with them coming along, with them coming along and growing up.
Here you go. Imagine them in their underwear.
With them growing up, I knew that's something I wanted them to learn. So one day my husband's like a second shift at the casino, packed them up, let's go to language. And that's our art journey. And then the language coordinator started kids language, so we started going there, and it just progressed, and then it became Helter was her first, kids language teacher and teaching Head Start. And I have walked away from the Head Start part because it just limited Niles and driving to Wajak and being away from the kids. That took up a lot of my time, so I decided and cut into a lot of my language, and I'm like, put that in the back burner, go and be with my family and make sure they get the language, and or to help me to help learn, teach those children is that I still go to language class. I go Thursday nights. My sister-in-law started teaching South Bend, and it's been an interesting journey. And having children in a public school has been interesting. So I was nervous going from Head Start to this close-knit family to take them somewhere that they don't know no one. They go to Brandywine right up the road, and I love that school district. My daughter back here, her flag's hanging in her room. Sometimes she said, I asked her, well, where do you sit in your class? She goes, under the flag. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's nice. And I actually spoke at their school when they were in second grade teacher. The English, because she's from England, she asked me to come in and speak for on behalf of the tribe. And oh yeah, I can do that. And that was nice to watch those kids. And then last year, their school brought in the dancers and stuff, and Jason Wiesel was asking them questions about our tribe, and it was so nice to hear how much knowledge that school was teaching our tribe and how closely correct that was. Because I went to Wajak and learning about pagans was almost taboo. Potawatomi, and then we come back wrong. So I would ask them, like, what did you learn? What did you learn about this? And they come back, I'm like, oh. They actually did the research. They actually go back and try to find outcomes, which was nice. That, and then, it was funny because yesterday, there's a teacher there, she downloaded, we have app now on the Android and app one. She's been trying to learn from that. She's a third grade teacher. And every time I come to school, she's like, Bushu. And she goes, well, how do I say friend? I'm like, oh, it's Nikon. And she's like, okay, so now, yesterday she walked past me, we're at my daughter's music hall for Sunday, I was in there getting her ready, she walked past, and she's like, hi, I'm like, I looked at her, just wait, who's you? And she greets my daughters like that in school, so it's nice to see that their little itty school community acknowledges them and stuff, and seeing that there's more Pagans trying to go that route. We picked up some more on the way, and I find out more as they go there. And now, so in summers, it's nice because I work at that school district now, lunch aid, so I can be there for the kids and go back and learn language. But my language pack, I mean, it's been interesting to see how much has changed in the last 5 years. How much our dialect with the apprentices going back and watching the Forest County dialect come over. Because sometimes people are like, well, because we had a big push of that not wanting to come over. And you get hit like, well, that's not why I grew up. I'm like, well, I grew up a different way too, with that long ooh sound. And it's interesting seeing the both dialects take place. I have people in Head Start actually say, oh, we had to re-encourage them rather than I had to encourage them because they're like, well, we're tired of learning. You guys keep changing it. Every time we learn it, you change it. Like, well, how did I think I feel? I mean, come on. I had to keep relearning it too. And it was nice that, with her coming in and then me, and I right now I don't know what they're doing. That's why I get text saying, hey, how do you say this word? How do you spell that word? I'm not teaching. But seeing, being there and watching little kids grow up saying that and stuff, and then going back here and parents are like, oh, my kid's doing this, and kids, I'm like, oh, yeah, so sweet. But yeah, I mean, going back to that tool world thing and trying to help my kids balance it along with me. Yeah, it's been a journey within itself. Any questions?
Questions? Fire away.
Oh, does someone else want to ask
No.
a question? I don't know why I have to walk my dog.
I'll fire away.
Is your language still used actively, like, as part of, like, the ceremonies and stuff?
Sorry.
If you know anything about
Ceremonial
Pueblos,
person here.
our whole our calendar is full of stuff's going on all the time. I can't even keep up with it all. You guys have that going on?
It does get, probably ceremonies is probably the most often that you'll hear it. Also, the people who have the most language are also the people who are most involved in Jijigawan and doings. So that's where you'll hear it the most. As I said, we here in this area, Southwest Michigan, Northern Indiana, we lost our last first language speaker about 8 years ago now. So there aren't people who are, now that, we mentioned the 2 apprentices that went to Forest County and came back, they're conversational now. They're beginning conversational level. So you get around them, they can generate little conversations, and so you're starting to hear that. And they're at the, they both work out of our language and culture department. And my niece who spoke yesterday, she also works there, and, you know, you go in there and they've got little things going on, you know, they catch these little, more than just an exchange, they'll catch these little growing conversations happening. So those are the times that you'll hear it the most. And since that's also why we went to northern Wisconsin to get the language, because we don't have the whole picture here anymore. And we're trying to rebuild that, trying to regrow that. So that's where you hear it the most. The Potawatomi are scattered because of contact and because of treaty times. And over the last 25 years, we've had gatherings where we bring everyone together. And so we've had a language conference and language workshops that have grown out of that effort over the last 25 years. And there you'll bring the speakers together, and that's where you'll that's where you'll hear conversations, that's where you'll hear longer speech. And then we talk bad about the Ojibwe, but you know, they're our cousins, you know, and they're our cousin language, and you know, they have, you know, what, 300,000 Ojibwe and they have thousands of speakers, and we have 6. So, you know, we'll go and hear that language as well.
To overcome the geographic distance between North Pueblo and the nearest one that speaks the same dialect we used to, and I want to, coming out of this conference, I'm going to go back home and try and get some folks to do this Skype, where we'll just commit ourselves. We had it going for a while where, you know, once a week or maybe every other week, commit to a 2-hour session of Skyping with folks up there that speak it still very fluently. Because, you know, if you send people to go immerse and learn and they come back and then they have no one else to talk to. And it's lonely. It's lonely being the only one that can speak it, you know. So Skype is fantastic for that.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of that. The Oklahoma Potawatomi has a lot of online sessions, pretty strongly ongoing. Hannahville up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan has done it off and on at different times. Other individuals have done it off and on at different times.
I want to make Gun Lake and Huron Band have their classes available as a podcast, you know, just record the class.
I'm talking about just informal conversation, you know, not a formal lesson or anything, just talking like you do in English. You call your relatives, you chat, just chat in your language.
We're trying to get there, but you know, again, we have for Potawatomi, we have probably 6 speakers.
All right. Well, we don't have a whole lot on telephone, but Jim's so hard of hearing anymore. He's hard to talk to over the phone. You have to be in person. You have to be able to gesture around.
But that, I think the larger issue you're touching on is that conversations have to happen. You can only learn, you can only learn so much by yourself. It's, you can be fluent in your own head, but if you're not talking to anyone, it's not a language. And that's, how do you do that? How do you get people together, and how do you make them say those words out loud? That's a struggle. But the new technologies, Skype, all the different technologies where you combine video and audio, Skype and its relatives, that's certainly certainly tools that could be used.
Yesterday, we heard from a speaker, I think David was his name, talking about in the revitalization frameworks that are out there, that often the early steps are focusing on adult learners. Are those programs are there programs out there, and did you go through those? What are the efforts to sort of build more adult learners?
We have different steps. We have Snug 1, Snugget, Niche, Snugget, Sway, which those are the different steps of different learners, about being beginner and then middle and then advanced. That's how we're trying to, because we have Anatomy come down, Red Corn, come down and help us emerge more and try to get TPR going more, which I think that's been helping a lot more with the adults, at least with the younger ones especially. I think that's been helping a lot more.
The different bands have different things going on for adults, like Waukegan Band's getting ready to host their second immersion camp, their immersion week, this summer. Hannahville had been doing 3 weeks during the summer. We had a young lady who was working on her PhD out of Berkeley. She was working with Hannahville. They got a grant, and she pulled out the Potawatomi Language Scholars College. I would like to see that picked up again. I don't know who we could get to umbrella that, but that would be interesting. I'd like to see that continue.
Yeah, I mentioned the 2 apprentices that we sent off, and that's currently we lined up 2 more apprentices to work under them. So we're trying to build that, keep building it, master apprentice, focusing on getting younger people than me. I have to say I'm more advanced than most of our learners, but I'm 62, and it's good to see younger people coming up and doing it too. That's where it needs to happen. That's where I'm only going to be teaching so many more years, and there's new generations that need to come in here. And so the focus has been to get, try to get younger with the people who are acquiring it, getting them conversational. And why we're emphasizing the programs that Martha's involved with, start getting it to the children. And we have to bring the adults along. Because, as I mentioned earlier, we have to be able to give them the whole picture. Go beyond cat dog 1, 2, 3. And so Waukegan Band is trying to do all those steps. We're trying to put all those pieces in place and have that whole stratification going on. And we're getting there. We're making those steps. I'd like to acknowledge Rhonda Purcell, our language program coordinator. I think they changed her to language program manager. But anyway, she's the administrator behind it. Steering all this thing, putting this together, and she understands that whole thing. And she's young too, so it's good to see that. It's good to see that happen.
Young and driven.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, is it time for another question?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry I had to keep going in and out. I don't want to interrupt too much, but my question is for Kevin specifically, and I apologize if you touched on this in your presentation already, but When we learn indigenous languages, I'd say it's qualitatively different than when we learn what I guess is called hegemonic languages like French or Spanish. And a lot of times when you work with high school students like you do, when you ask them, like, why did you decide to take Spanish? Well, French was too hard. Why did you decide to take French? Well, I don't like that Spanish teacher or something. Whereas when they make that decision to learn Ojibwe or learn Potawatomi, it's much different project. It's not such a scholarly project as it is a political one. I want to learn Ojibwe because it's a dying language or because it's part of my identity or what have you. Do you find it with your kids that they have inherited that political project? Do they think that way? And if not, is that something that you think is important as far as getting them motivated to keep learning because it is so important?
In the high school, my classes are mixed. It's Pokagon band and non-Pokagon band, native and non-native. Some of the kids have that political awareness. Some of them don't. And it's only the native kids who have that political awareness, and some of them do have that political awareness. Some of the native kids don't really have it. They understand that I have this connection to it, so I'm in this class. But the larger political issue, it's not there. I think I asked the kids my first year. I asked them, why are you doing this? And there were several of them that said, I didn't want to take Spanish. I didn't say to them, well, you've just chosen one of the hardest languages in the world instead. Seriously. I don't tell them that. I think word's gotten out that it is challenging because the kids, the second year kids coming in are a little more, they're a little more ready to tackle something. I didn't get as many kind of casual, goofy kids coming in, so I'm thinking that it's because the word is getting out that it's a challenging subject. I think I also teach it a little differently. I'm political about it. I try not to be overtly political about it. I understand that I'm in a public school setting, but I'm on a mission. I'm doing this myself because I'm on a mission. I'm doing this for myself. I'm learning it because it's a mission. Our whole tribe has a mission. And so these kids, the non-native kids, they're there because they got to get their 2 years of required world language credit to graduate. I got you in here, even if you're non-native, you're going to learn things so you can talk to the other native kids, so they have someone to talk to. You're here to learn a language. You're here to learn to speak. This isn't an enrichment class. And that's my attitude. And no kid wants to be, especially teenagers, they don't want to be ordered around. They don't want to feel like they're ordered around. So I try to make it as goofy as I can. But the intent is that you're still building up your 2,000 to 4,000 hours of comprehensible input. I don't care whether you feel that the feathers are pretty or that what our house houses were built with or what they weren't built with. That's secondary to me. It's good to learn those things. It's good to understand those things, but that's secondary to me. I want people to speak the language. That's why I'm there. So I come at it from a little different twist on it. I'm using the public school system for Pokagon band ends and not using it for the Michigan Department of Education ends. Don't